the first weekend of spring. It's March 24th, 2019. I'm going to do a video of the house. Try to do this every year, just to give an update of what's been going on in the yard. So we have the loquat, which is doing very well this year. Down below we planted some crocus to grow saffron. This is their first year. They should flower next year. The azaleas are doing very well. Palm project continues. We have on the front porch 2 queen palms from Puerto Rico, 2 aloe plants in the back, the 2 coffee. They're getting bigger. This is the year that we did the chevron pattern on the porch. Got the big coffee plant in the background there. When this fellow gets bigger, he will go over here on this end. Coming around this side, the bougainvillea had a nice mild winter. It's being trained to go across the garage. We pruned it back pretty hard this year, so it's growing well. Another palm. The rosemary is doing great. The asparagus, first weekend of the spring, are just starting to come out. Hodgepodge garden over here. Still have thyme, aloe, some leftover vincas from last summer. We've started some chamomile seeds. We'll try that in here. The grapes have broken bud. The cinnamon's back in place. These palms are getting huge. The sage is about to flower. We have 1 lavender that is doing fantastic. The other 3 in this bed are beginning to grow. The camellias are slow growers, but they're doing well. The hydrangeas are just starting to flower. We have an enormous number of buds on the olive tree. Hopeful this year that we'll get more than a handful. Over here we have another olive tree that has not done so well. It's probably too shady and too wet. That will probably come out of the ground this year and be replaced possibly by a cherry tree. Coming around we have the rain chain that has made its way from Port Aransas. More of our palms. On the deck, this year is when we added the roses from last summer's cuttings. The plan will be for them to climb on some wires on the back of the house. Back towards the pineapple garden, this year we have a couple of potted plants of flowers for cutting. In the middle there we've got philodendron from my parents' house, 2 pots of gardenia cuttings, and 1 pot of rosemary. These 3 pots are cosmos. Tana's trying to go this spring for cuttings. In the bed we've got a variety of peppers and a variety of tomatoes. This year we're trying stakes rather than cages. The theory being stakes are infinitely easier to store. Pineapple garden doing well. We already have several that are flowering. The coconut experiment seems to be a failure. May try again. We've got flowers coming out on at least 3 of the pineapple. We've added this temporary sprinkler coming off of the splitter. We'll be able to activate that in the summer. We've got lots of garlic growing. Random pots of crepe myrtles that have appeared. A guava that was left for dead. This is our chestnut tree. This will be the first spring with the chestnut tree, possibly as a replacement for the Bradford pear and the deck. One of the pineapples even has some maroon bluebonnets in it, and it too is beginning to flower. We've got grapes on the side of the fire oven. This year I've also added in what I'm calling the aqueduct. We've got this channel that was existing. I've run a hose off the faucet under the deck, buried it in the rocks, and when it turned on, it flows through this channel. These drains are used to water the flower border. Runs along the sidewalk. Right now we've got pansies and marigolds. We've added in a drain that then goes out towards the ditch. Back here we've got some extra pineapples and a papaya from Marcel. The tree line is complete. Everything had a nice mild winter. Once again we have the Kefir lime, Mexican lime, the Satsuma, Meyer lemon, grapefruit, tangerine, guava, and all these citrus are flowering wonderfully right now. And you can see there's enormous numbers of blooms. The grapefruit in particular, which has had such a hard time, is flowering wonderfully. The guava was beginning to leaf out. We had a very cold week about 2 weeks ago, knocked the leaves off, but they're coming back. This is the first year that the avocado has flowered. It's also got a wasp on it that I'm going to stay away from. The rose bush is doing very well. You can see the water coming out of there. Onto the deck. We once again have the nightshade cactus from Uncle Jerry. These ferns were split off of some bigger root-bound ones, so they're a little ragged right now. We just did that a couple weeks ago. In the raised beds, we've got some oregano and cilantro, chives, and parsley. The basil is just beginning to come out from seed. All the palms still here. 2 more queen palms in the square pots, a miniature rose, an extra grape that was rooted by some leaf layers from the original plants over there. The ginger has yet to sprout. The mint is doing well. The catnip, the chives. We've gone in the spring with geraniums. We've now expanded to 3 pots. This is the peace lily. This is the new bistro set we got this past year, inspired by our Germany trip, as well as the geraniums. Back here we've got a cherry, a Puerto Rican palm that's not doing too hot. It got a little cold. The bay, which we've been pruning back to keep open. A tray full of pineapple. And then as we go back around, we're still waiting on this year's horseradish and turmeric to come out. We have added these climbing flowers, whose names forget me right now. One with a button bush. They're not forget-me-nots, but they're something similar. I've got a wasp hovering around me. Just netted the blueberries today. We pruned them fairly good last year so that they're a little bushier. The date palm in the back was a cheap find at Lowe's in the winter for next to nothing. The fig is beginning to put leaves on. Trying to get it shaped more tree-like and less sprawling. The persimmon, trying to get into a martini glass shape. The two pears, this is obviously the older one as compared to the younger one back there. It flowered 2 weeks ago, but I don't see any fruit on it. So we'll have to see if maybe it needs the second one. We've also added these two, you can see, one to the left, one to the right, insect hotels. Ideas we got from Germany. Just saw a wasp fly into one. We've got the okra beginning to pop out here. It's the first year we're trying the lavender experiment. We're going to have these few lavender pots will, you can see the wasp go in. Or not. The lavender pots, the idea is to try to get them raised and dry, mulched with rock. Tomatoes went in a few weeks ago. Once again, we've gone with sticks, not cages. Banana. It survived a mild winter as well, and it's got 3 offshoots coming out. Tomatillos are in, doing fairly well. The curry leaf is trying to come back. We'll see how it does. The roses were pruned back pretty hard this winter. They've grown quite a bit. Getting to see some flowers up there. Just beginning to open. And then the newest addition this March, this flower bed, we had a tree cut down. It was fairly thin in there, so in order to fill it out, I've used our spare ferns that have been divided, made a rock border and a couple channels to let water out. Bought a couple of azaleas that should fill it in as well. And then at the very back, on the southwest end of this tree line, we've got a wisteria, which will hopeful will fill this area. Perhaps next year, if the lavender does well, we will create a border edge along here that's sandier, rockier, and raised up so that the lavender would have great drainage, and we could have a lavender border along this sidewalk. And that's the tour for this year.